Alright, let's do it. Here we are, boys, back at it once again in Oblivion. Well, you know me. I only love to give the best tips on my channel, and I'm pleased to say, with the 200th video on my channel, I did it again. Because listen, hear me out. The combat of this classic game may not be correctly balanced at its current stage. If you ask me, there needs to be a 6th difficulty between normal and expert. Now, when the game first came out, and after hours of discussion with my brother and buddies, we came to the conclusion that the best way to play the game is on normal difficulty, and placing large limits on yourself. My buddy Casey actually started out with no fast travels and just tried to RP the shit out of the game, avoiding any information from the outside world. And my brother wanted to play as a fist fighter. Well, my buddy ended up completing the Frostrend quest at level 5, so his version of Frostrend is super underleveled garbage. I told him to avoid starting the main storyline quest until he was level 22 so he could get the mundane ring, and he told me to shove it. My brother started crushing everything on normal with his fisty boy, straight up ragdolling everything, nothing was a challenge, so he figured his level 9 fister build should be in expert difficulty. Now, if you followed Oblivion combat changes in the remastered version, you know they omega nerfed fist fighting, basically removing the abilities for KOs during combat. Now, my brother is a sharp guy, but he's having real trouble playing at expert, and I think it's because the expectation is just too damn high. You can't enchant or poison your fists, and you can't improve your hand-to-hand combat past 100, so there's not a lot of great ways to increase your damage. I told him maybe he should try power leveling and just playing on normal, so harder enemies will spawn, but he won't get any stronger. He wasn't confident that would be a challenge. So next I told him to supplement his fister with illusion and destruction magic. Use crafted touch spells to stun, disintegrate armor, and then weaken magic 100%, in that order. That way, the enemy will fall down whenever you cast your spell, and then their armor will be destroyed, so you can kill heavily armored units with your fists. You probably need to cast a spell twice to fully reduce the enemy's armor, but it sounds like a pretty cheap spell mana-wise, so I think he can pull it off. Maybe I can look into an expert-style fist fighter build for you guys next. Stay tuned. Myself, I started out by completing the arena on easy. Then I joined the Mages Guild, and then I power leveled potions while doing boss room rotations and, wait before traveling sort of thing. My early plan was to check out Vanilla Master Experience, and I gotta tell you, it's a pretty great way to play the game. This build makes me feel pretty strong and still moderately challenged. Video plan. So after all of the refined tips for free custom tools I've prepared for y'all, I will show you the way that I'm limiting myself to make master enemies still a challenge. So on one hand, you'll have the final OP setup for the Spellblade, loaded with all kinds of different tools and devastating tricks to crush the game on Master Mode, and on the other hand, you'll have my official tips for free recommended version to make Master Mode a real challenge. I recommend going the path I did, which is to get all the tools and then to decide for yourself on which limitations to set based on how you intend to play the game and how difficult you actually want to make it. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. Gear. OP setup. So, the gear hasn't changed from the last video, but just a quick recap, pick Brenton and go with the mage sign. Here are all the major skills I picked, but they don't really matter. Really, it's not like you should re-roll or anything. I could make an OP Spellblade with any race, sign, and skills selected. These are just the most ideal ones to go with. Here is the enchanted dagger I still recommend. Really, any dagger that looks cool would be fine here, because we're basically just using it for the weaken and the soul trap effects. Use your favorite armor set. Our potion will have % shield on it, making nearly any armor set you enchant capped at the 85 armor cap. That's basically 85 damage reduction. My favorite is the Daedric armor because it looks super badass and gives me massive nostalgia hits, but Madness armor is technically correct, especially if you decide to pass on the God potion. To best follow the build guide, go ahead and deck yourself out with full Daedric. You won't regret it. So basically we enchant each armor piece with plus 50 mana, because as I've said so many times, mana is power in this game. To get the best in-slot enchantment, simply close Oblivion gates. Save the game just before picking up the end sigil stone, check it, and then reload the game until you get the plus 50 mana enchant. A quick bit of cheese here. If you want to rush it along, you can actually dupe the Sigil Stones, on PC at least. I'm unsure if you can do this with a controller. You might need 4 of the same Sigil Stones to perform the dupe correctly with a controller, but, you know, I'll let you guys look into that. Someone please post a good duping guide for controllers, and I'll pin it below. But this is the duping method that I've found, and it has the least number of inputs. Basically, you drag a stack of anything into a container, say 100 lockpicks. It'll ask for the amount selected, you select the max amount, but it won't transfer the item. That's strange. Now go over to the thing you want 100 of, and shift-click it over. Boom. Now it moves it over, but it still remembers the 100 quantity you had before, except now it's 100 of whatever you want. Duped. What a great feature. Boom. Weapon, armor, done. Ring time. The best ring in the game is the Mundane Ring, obtained at level 22 from the main story quest. If you missed your chance to get the guaranteed one, don't worry, there's tons of farming methods for it to find it late game. Also, the Sorcerer's Ring is super good, but if you haven't found that yet, just make another plus 50 magic ring, it's no big deal. And the last piece of gear to get is the amulet. Go ahead and pick up the Necromancer amulet from the Arcane University questline. Be sure to save before getting it, because I think if you're not level 25, you might get a less powerful version. I'm really not sure. The Wikipedia says there's a bug that it only drops at max level. Go ahead and confirm that yourself. Potions. So I'm actually pretty excited to talk about potions here, because I've been thinking about it a lot. Because to include potions in your build may seem cheap at first glance, but in reality, the spells are just busted anyways, so if you limit yourself by not duping potions, you won't get to experience the full intended game features, because remember, it's only 1 or 2 clicks to dupe things. It's intended. They didn't take it out of the remastered version. It's clearly there to improve the fun factor of the game. If you don't believe me, just go and craft health and mana potions as you go, and don't worry about duping. It'll just basically take up an extra quick slot because you'll have to craft 2 potions, 1 for mana and 1 for health. Restore potions. The God Potion gives restore health, mana, and fatigue, but it also gives shield and feather. And the powerful part is shield, because basically it lets you get to armor cap basically wearing any armor. So if you're going for style points and you still want massive damage reduction, go ahead and use this potion. Once again, 85 armor basically means you're going to be taking 85% less damage. With full heavy armor, our build gets there anyways, but this lets you break most of your items during combat and be lazy about repairing, but still being at armor cap. Otherwise, it's just a health and mana potion that gives feathers. All the things you probably would craft regularly, so duping this for this build just reduces the grind of crafting and opens up more quick slots for more fun. Here's another Restore All potion with feather. It's basically the same thing, but without shield, so it's probably more fair. Here's a Restore All Chameleon potion, and this one is probably the strongest thing in the game, since if you drink 3 of these things, it turns the AI off during combat. They just ignore you completely. Buffing potions. The next category to consider is buffing potions. Potions that buff willpower and max mana are absolutely broken right now. See this potion? It gives 38 willpower and 100 mana for multiple minutes each. Each effect stacks, so click it 10 times and now you have 1,000 more mana and 380 more willpower. Using these often will completely eliminate any mana problems you have whatsoever. If you limit yourself and use them sparingly, you can still use them without it getting super out of hand. Poisons. The final category to consider for potion slots is poisons. We've got a big fat damage poison, a stun and shock poison, a stun and cold poison. Overall, they seem pretty fair compared to a lot of the other things that we're doing, but adding a stun to the mix can certainly change the tides and be very powerful. Spells. Spellcrafting in this game is super broken at the moment. It turns out you can add Paralyze and Soul Trap for 1 second to any touch spell, and it doesn't increase the mana cost at all. So that's right, power level your illusion and mysticism, boys. I put 3 custom spells together that seem to work great on this build, and a few restoration buffing spells. Keep in mind, I'm not planning on putting together a completely broken, mana-hungry AoE nuking character here, though we easily could with all the tools in this video. I'm looking to put together the OP Spellblade. Damage spells. Okay, I don't want to explain this too much, but looking at the first spell, it's just high damage. 4 different types of damage. Since elemental damage is the best, I've optimized my fire and shock. I put a little bit of frost in there just for coverage, and adding small amounts of damage is inexpensive to add to a spell, so I figured why not, and kind of the same thing with damage health. It's got stun, soul trap, 364 quad damage, quad weakness, and it costs a decent chunk of mana. Next, I have a spell to handle situations with groups that are charging me. It stuns, soul traps, it deals 33 damage, which actually has no additional cost to add to any spell, and then the quad weaken in an area. An enemy charges you, sit him down with your spell, swing a dagger at his buddy, now the buddy is double primed, hit him with your 364 damage spell, boom, dead. Finally, we have a completely spammable, low damage, low mana cost spell. Hit anything in the game with this thing 3 to 4 times, and poof, they're dead. Your mana barely moves. It's your all-purpose, sit down and die, cost nothing spell. Buffing spells. Buffing spells will ultimately be lower effectiveness than any potion buffing method you use. But the benefit here is that it requires less inputs to get going, and it isn't as cheesy. So let's go over the ones I'd recommend. First off, the skill type is Restoration, so power level Restoration. The first spell is a speed buff. It gives 100 speed for 60 seconds. Speed just lets you run around the game faster. Drinking 3 speed potions will have the same effect, but you can also drink 20 speed potions and just be way faster. It's your call on this one, guys. You can also drop the duration and add acrobatics and athletics here. Also, once again, it's your call. The next buff I'd recommend is a 100 willpower buff for 120 seconds. Same thing as before, you could simply drink 3 willpower potions and have the same effect, but you can also drink 20 willpower potions and have a much more effect on your mana regen. Again, it's your call here. You can also make a 100 mana, 100 intellect buff for 120 seconds. And those are your primary buffing tools. Hotkey wheel. Now that you have all the tools, let's configure our Spellblade's hotkey wheel setup to be OP. Starting at hotkey 1, this is my health and mana restore potion slot. Use the God potion here. Basically, it gives you feather and max armor regardless of your gear situation. Hotkey 2, I'll recommend speed buffing or a speed potion here. Hotkey 3, I'll use my AoE weaken spell. Hotkey 4, the Azura's Star Infinite Soul Gem. Hotkey 5, I'll use my low mana all-purpose spammable spell. Hotkey 6, I'll use my willpower buff. It's either the spell or potion here. Hotkey 7, I'll use my primary damage, big damage spell. This is the one I use with my double dagger hits to one-shot anything. Hotkey 8, I used a stun potion, but I switch it out. This is a flex slot, so realistically, use whatever sounds the most fun. Heck, even put a repair hammer here. And that's it. Your Spellblade's absolutely busted. You're sitting at 100 magic resistance. You take 0 elemental damage. You're sitting at 85 armor, so you're completely damage reduction capped. You're basically an immortal god at this point. Good job. Hard mode changes. So to this point, I've given you all the tools that were interesting enough for me to investigate, but just because we have all of this power doesn't mean we should use it. I've been testing all these tools and thinking about the difficulty of the game for days in hopes to design a setup that's truly challenging to play on master difficulty. In my opinion, each enemy should die in about 3 to 4 hits for the game to be fun for the player. And that's what this build does. However, currently the enemies don't do any effing damage, aside from a few of them. So to make the enemies more threatening, we have to limit ourselves. Start by shooting for maybe 70 magic resistance and 70 armor. At this point, I suggest taking off the mundane ring and replacing it with maybe a 20 magic resist ring. You can get the 20 magic resist enchant from a sigil stone, so with the 50 magic resist you get from being Brenton and 20 from the ring, voila, now you're at 70. The next limitation will be to only use the basic Restore Feather potion. This will remove the shield buff you get from the God potion, allowing you to reduce your armor by just switching out some of your heavy armor pieces for maybe starter armor pieces, or maybe light armor, or just whatever looks good. With our newly lowered defenses, the damage enemies will do now will be huge. But don't worry, you have all the tools you need to fight these guys. Adjust your resistances and your defenses to allow for challenging gameplay according to your skill level. Outro. And that's it. That's my best effort at compiling a full Spellblade class breakdown and guide. At first, I didn't think I had very much to say, but then I started getting it out and it turns out to be quite the endeavor. So as we all know, this type of content is typically passion project type stuff, and that's pretty much my whole channel. Other people do this stuff for a job, and I have no idea how they pull it off because it's so challenging to get funding, and even with thousands and thousands of views, you're going to be looking at tens and tens of dollars. I love sharing my passion with the gaming community, and I think it's awesome that hundreds of people tune in to see my clips. So if you like this and other free content, consider checking out my channel and dropping a friendly comment in chat. Thanks for watching, guys.